real estate agents what the heck is happening in this market. Plus, here are the top 6 stressors for home sellers when it comes to selling their home and the action items you can take today so you can get more listings. Stay tuned. I've got some great stuff to go through today. I think you're going to be really excited for all of the content. There's so much to cover that I'm going to go really quick. First thing I wanted to do was just kind of share with you some insights that I gained from watching a webinar last week. So Lance Lambert is the former real estate editor for Fortune, and he recently has shifted off and created his own real estate publication called Resi Club. And Zoodealio is a subscriber of Resi Club, and so I was part of a webinar where he kind of digested what's going on in the housing market, and I wanted to share with you some real quick takeaways. So this was an hour webinar, and I'm condensing down what I'm sharing today to about 6 slides, but I think that these ones are very impactful and great for us just to kind of be looking at, because this real estate market is interesting. And I say that week over week. We are in unprecedented times. So what is going on? One thing we know is that the housing market is still going pretty well. Now, all real estate is hyper local, so your market may be outperforming, underperforming, but as a whole, the real estate market is predicted to, from most of the analyst accounts, appreciate this year. So there were some revised housing forecasts. Here they are. I wanted to show you them. Depending on the source, depends on what they're predicting for the year, but you can see that we have anywhere from 5.5% appreciation to Zillow's appreciation prediction is just a little less bullish. But I wanted you to be able to take a look at these and see that most economists agree that the market will still do fairly well this year. Now, what is happening with interest rates? We know that now they're at that 7% mark, maybe a little bit higher. We know that purchase applications have fallen considerably over the past couple weeks. But what I wanted to share is also the rate predictions, because most of the rate predictions say that we're going to see some relief. Now, when is that going to happen? Will the Fed cut rates in March? We still don't know. Inflation still came in kind of hot in February. What's it going to do in March? And will that impact the Fed? And if they decide to cut rates at the end of March, we're going to, of course, all eyes be on that Fed meeting to see what happens. But as you can see, as the latter half of the year and into 2025, the predictions are that rates will be back into the 5% mark. And I know Tom Ferry, if you're a Tom Ferry follower, he is very adamant that we are going to be in the 5% here soon. And, it was looking that way, but then February kind of threw us some curveballs. So that's going to be a really interesting thing to keep an eye out on. Another thing that we've talked about before, and I wanted to point out again, that the spread between the 10-year Treasury and the mortgage interest rates is still really high. So typically we see a spread of about 1.78 points, and what we're seeing now is closer to 3. So if the spread were to normalize, we would see interest rates come back down. Why is this happening? Well, there's just not buyer of mortgage-backed securities like there was. So when the government stopped buying them, what's happening is that spread has increased to kind of insulate that. So interesting, and we could see conditions improve to where that spread could come down. Here's something else that I thought was really super interesting. Depending on what market you're in, and I have another slide that's a follow-up to this, it's going to show the apartments or the multifamily coming perhaps to a neighborhood near you. But apartments, the supply is about to hit excess. So if you look at this chart here, 2024, we're expected to see more apartments being delivered to the market since 1974. So there was a ton of multifamily that was built during the pandemic, and it's coming to market now. As you can imagine, building these apartment complexes takes a lot of time, and so that supply hasn't quite yet hit, but it's coming. And then here's kind of a look at what is being delivered this year depending on your market. For me here, I'm in Phoenix. We're number 2. Dallas is number 1. We've got Phoenix, New York, Austin, Atlanta, Houston. Those are some of the tops for deliverables of that multifamily, that apartment supply hitting the market. So think about what this could potentially do to that entry-level home in your market, especially if you're in a market like Dallas or Phoenix or Atlanta, where there's a ton of institutional buyers, and all of those institutionally owned homes, we could see some maybe pressure on rents. And as there's pressure on rents, perhaps that they, maybe sell off some of their portfolios so that their balance sheets look good. So interesting kind of to keep an eye on this and be aware of this as it's happening, especially if you're in one of these markets that's going to get a ton of new apartment supply coming. And then the last slide from Lance Lambert's webinar is the new listings. So I thought this was really interesting because we look at the new listings kind of as that barometer of how the market is going to perform that year. And we did see more new listings this January than last January. But what we also see is that we are still at pre-pandemic lows. Is the market just more efficient? I don't know. Potentially. Also potentially the lock-in effect. So we know that a lot of sellers are still locked into very low interest rates, and we know that that switching cost, the cost for them to switch to higher mortgage, still isn't quite there. Now, Zillow had their home price expectancy survey that they released just a few months ago, and what they found is that sellers are getting to that point where they're considering, okay, rates are maybe here to stay. They're not going to be much lower, and so a lot of sellers are now contemplating now is the time. I think that as time goes on, we're going to see some more of that, but it's an election year, so it's a wild card year. And with the election potentially being very hotly debated, it could cause some uncertainty, which could cause some market slowdown. So think back to maybe 2016, which, 2020 election year, it was the pandemic, so everything was just so crazy. But if you look back at 2016, hotly debated, hotly contested election year, and what we can recall is that a lot of folks were staying put. They weren't going to make a move until after the election. And so potentially we could see that take place and be the story or narrative that unfolds in the latter half of 2024. Wanted to share with you what's going on in real estate quickly before we dive into some other topics. Something else that I feel very passionate about sharing with you is the Department of Justice did file a statement of interest in one of the commission lawsuits that settled. This is the NASLIC lawsuit. You may also hear it called MLS Pin lawsuit. And the reason I'm sharing this with you is because the Department of Justice is intervening and they're saying, hey, court, do not approve the settlement agreement. They're saying instead, you should have a provision in this settlement that ends buyer broker compensation. And so the Department of Justice has laid it out. They said that they believe that there should not be commission sharing. Now, in the proposal or, rule change the Department of Justice is providing, they're saying that they're okay with the seller paying a buyer broker commission if it's asked for in a purchase contract. This could have massive implications. It kind of goes to show the sentiment of the Department of Justice as far as the commission lawsuits are trending. And I also think that the judge that presided over Sitzer Burnett, who has the ability to enter an injunction against commission sharing, and he can do so as early as April or May, probably is reading through the Department of Justice statement of interest that was filed in the NASLIC case and likely will be taking the points raised in that under advisement. So it's going to be really interesting. Now more than ever is the time for us to be completely shifting our focus to working on sellers. And I know that working with buyers oftentimes is a labor of love. Oftentimes people really enjoy that. I've coached so many agents over the years that love working with buyers because they love helping that buyer find that home. That feeling is just irreplaceable. But the reality is, if you look at what's happening in the real estate world, it is not a good time to be focusing solely on buyers. When these changes happen, and I believe that they are almost inevitable, it's just a matter of when and how fast will we need to roll out new changes. But when change takes place, I want you to be insulated against it. I want you to be ready to rock. I don't want you to have to worry about having to go back and negotiate commissions with buyers. I mean, I think through the scenarios that this will lead to, and we know that there will be a lot of buyers that won't be able to A, afford a commission, and B, even if they can afford it, they likely will haggle and try and get a very discounted rate. And if it's included in the purchase contract and gets stricken out or countered or the house doesn't appraise, it's just going to have a ton of challenges that come along with it. And I think that we can avoid those by shifting our focus to working with sellers. One of the interesting things that I look at over the past 4, 6, 8 years stressors is all of the billions of dollars that has poured into the real estate industry, and it's venture capital that they're seeking a long-term change and they're willing to wait it out. Potentially they were even behind these commission lawsuits, I don't know, but they have invested billions of dollars into real estate technology. Why? Well, there are a few reasons why. And the biggest one is that the online real estate technology space has lagged other industries. And so there's this huge effort to put it online and allow real estate transactions to take place. We saw the birth of Opendoor, of OfferPad. We know Zillow tried to get into that game, didn't work out too well for them. But ultimately what has happened is all of these online marketplaces for real estate have provided a cash offer for sellers in some capacity. Most of them have partnered with Opendoor. So of course, Zillow, we know that you can get a cash offer from Opendoor right from Zillow. We know that on Redfin, you can also get a cash offer from Opendoor right on Redfin. We know on Realtor.com, again, you can get that cash offer from Opendoor right on Realtor.com. And so we know that the cash offer hook or the cash offering is the best way to get that seller lead. We also know that the likes of the big technology companies like the Opendoors, they're not really concerned about this buyer broker commission shift. In fact, if you read through some of the statements that they're making, so the CEO of Opendoor, Carrie Wheeler, has specifically said that this would be good for Opendoor. Their margins would increase if they didn't have to pay a buyer broker. They would be able to deliver more profit per home to their shareholders. And then you look at what Zillow has said in anticipation of this potential rule change, and the same thing. They're imagining the world, and if you read their shareholder report from Q4 of 2023, what you'll find is they actually use the word indulging. Rich Barton says he's indulging for a moment in this future scenario where buyer agency goes away. They're all hungry and ready for it. Why? Because they have the eyeballs and they'll be able to make these pivots and capitalize more on what they're already bringing in. But what I know is that homeowners, when they look to sell, and buyers, when they look to buy, they trust a local expert. And you know, it's real interesting because if you look at the billion-dollar campaign that Homes.com is now spreading out into the market, what we've learned about that campaign is they're focusing on locality. They're focusing on the things about a community or a neighborhood that make it truly unique. And they're trying to paint the picture of, we're gathering that data for you too, because they know that the consumer wants that local insight. They want you, and they don't want to be replaced and their services to be replaced by some big conglomerate. They really want that agent on their side. You look back at iBuyer studies that have studied sellers and surveyed sellers when requesting iBuyer offers, and what we also learned is that sellers want offers, yes, but they want them presented by an agent that they can trust, that's not aligned with the cash offer company. So again, they want you. And so as we shift our focus to working at sellers, I want to also share that there's been some recent data uncovered by 1000 Watt. They did a survey of home sellers last fall, and they found the 6 most stressful or challenging aspects of a home sale, and they digested it all for us. So we're going to go through those very quickly. So number 6 was open houses. 7% of sellers said that these stressed them out, didn't like the open houses. Number 5 was the paperwork. So when it came to selling their home, 9% of sellers said that, hey, the paperwork was overwhelming, it was stressful. Number 4, and oh my goodness, you're not gonna like this one, I didn't like this one, but hey, it's the truth. And 1 in 10 sellers said that dealing with real estate agents was the most stressful aspect of the home sale. This could also be on the showing front too, because if you can imagine, you know, that seller they've got their representative, and then they've got other buyers coming through with agents, and some of those agents aren't courteous, aren't professional, and so that can definitely make the situation harried. But it was a top stressor for sellers, was dealing with real estate agents. Number 3 was preparing their home for sale. And so getting the home ready for sale, we know that that is a challenge, and we also know that not everybody lives in their home as they're going to sell it. And so when it comes time to sell, there's a lot that they have to think through and a lot that they have to do. And if their home has deferred maintenance or needs repairs or needs updating, that adds element after element after element. And a lot of people are just simply so overwhelmed by the thought of that it stresses them out. 12% said that preparing their home for sale was the top stressor. Number 2 two was the uncertainty around the outcome. And I believe this is one of the reasons that cash offers do so well, is because there is certainty around that cash offer. But if you really think about it, it's that time matching equation, especially if somebody is selling to buy. And when you're putting your home on the market, you have no idea, am I going to get a buyer this weekend? Is the buyer going to come, 3 months from now? And when I do get that offer, is it going to fall through? All of the uncertainty, all of the question marks really stress out home sellers. And number one was negotiating. So this stresses sellers out. This was the top stressor that was revealed by 1000 Watt when they conducted this research. The negotiations, the back and forth between the buyer was the top stressor. 41% of sellers said that this gave them the most grief. So are you surprised by any of these? Probably not. I would say that we all know that the home sale has the challenges it has, and we probably all know that these are some of the top ones. But you have a way to eliminate 5 out of 6 of those stressors. You can eliminate all of those stressors, of course, with the exception of the real estate agent, because you are one, which is, I believe, a good thing, because if I'm really going to look at this in context, I think that that statement probably is spurred from the buyer agent and not you. And so because of that, you have a way through your Zoodealio platform to eliminate 5 out of 6 of those top stressors for sellers. And so as we shift our focus on sellers, we need to communicate our message to our marketplace at scale in a way that resonates with home sellers. And, I always say that marketing speaks to the thing that's keeping that homeowner up at night as they're considering selling, as they're thinking through the challenges of what that's going to be like. The best marketing is speaking to that. It's answering those questions. It's really, giving that home seller that thought that, wow, this person gets me. They understand what I'm going through. They know my unique needs and challenges. And then they're drawn to you because you formulated your messaging in such a way that it's almost like you're talking right to them. So your Zoodealio platform can really eliminate all of these stressful items for sellers. We've talked about how the Cash Plus is such a great structured offer. It's a full market value offer. It allows the seller to have that certainty, have that convenience. There are no negotiations back and forth because it's a full market value cash offer, and the seller gets the upside on the open market if that home sells for more. So what a beautiful way for them to ensure they're getting top full market value. In addition, with the repair strategy, if the home needs work, if it needs a little deferred maintenance taken care of, even if it needs a rehab or a remodel, it is viable with the Cash Plus offer. But what I do want to do is I want to leave you today with some tangible scripts that you can use, video, email, text, that you can use to send your message out to the marketplace at scale and communicate that you can help home sellers that are considering selling have a stress-free transaction. I have a video script for you that highlights these very things, kind of combats those things that we know are stressing sellers out. And the beautiful thing about this is we're speaking to all of the top challenges, all of the top stressors that sellers have. So here's a video script that you could take. You could record this today. It doesn't have to be fancy. It doesn't have to be high produced. It can be sitting in front of your computer. You could record this on a screen share app like a Zoom. Zoom now has clips, so you can record this on Zoom. I see a lot of agents using Loom. You could record this on your cell phone. You can just make this quick, easy. It doesn't need to be super produced. If it were me, I would record this using probably my iPhone. I'd probably record it right in the Instagram Reels app because I just like using it. I think it's easy. I would probably record every sentence on the Reels app and then stop and pause and re-record the second sentence, stop, pause, then re-record the third sentence, etc. And I would go through it in a very linear format so that it was really at the end, I had a really tight, well-crafted video. I think that that strategy works very well, but here's a video script for you. And the gist is you gotta record this. You gotta be putting out content that speaks to the questions that people have, to the stresses that people have when it comes to selling their home. And I think this video script accomplishes that for you. So I'm gonna encourage you, And in fact, I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge you to do this, because I know you're probably making a ton of other content, and I know that you're putting that out there too, but I want you to focus on sellers. And what we focus on, we find. And when you make content around home sellers, what's naturally going to happen is you're going to get more people that come to you that want you to help them sell their home. And so I think that making video content is one of the best ways to do it. You can post this natively on your Facebook, on your Instagram, on your LinkedIn, on your TikTok if you have one. You could post it on YouTube. You could share it into Facebook groups. There's so many ways for you to organically get this message out into the world. You could run a few bucks behind it and run it as a video on Facebook and Instagram. I just really believe that video is such a powerful way to connect authentically with your target audience. And when you're talking about selling your home, you're going to attract people that are considering selling their home. It's going to pop in their mind because of that reticular activation center. And when they hear home selling and they're thinking home selling, they're going to stop and pay attention to your video. What I know is the more content we put out and the more videos we put out, the more trust we're going to gain with our audience. So second is an email, and it's the same version of content. It's just in an email format. So if you have a database and you may be running like the launch campaign already against your database, great. It does not hurt to weave in a new email about your cash offer program. Again, very simply just goes through and highlights basically selling your home and how you can do it without the hassles that typically sellers face when it comes to selling their home. Here's an email for you that you can use. And then last, we have a text message, same version of the content, but pared down short to a couple sentences so that you can send it out via text. As you can see, it's not that difficult to come up with this, right? You can make this content, you can put it out into your database. I think the thing is there are few that will. And I know Rob will. Rob's committed. I'm confident he will. I look at this market and all the shift that's occurring, and we haven't seen it yet, right? We know it's coming. It's going to be seismic. And what I know is those of us that are willing to do the work, that are willing to stay committed, that are willing to listen to consumer behavior change, and are willing to adapt our business, we will thrive. We won't just survive this market, we will thrive, because there will be a massive thinning of the herd. And a lot of the old guard, or a lot of the people that are stuck in their old ways, won't adapt quickly enough to the change. And so by kind of shifting your mindset now, you're putting yourself ahead of the competition. I just want to reiterate that you are putting yourself ahead of everybody else who's kind of sitting back. I mean, there are some people that still don't think that these commission lawsuits are a big deal. There's still people that believe that this is just all going to go away. And I think we would be fooling ourselves if we had that mindset. It will not serve us. And so if you start to shift now, what's the worst that can happen? You tool yourself up to take more listings and work with more sellers. That's amazing. And that is literally the worst that can happen to you. So I want to just encourage you to invest in your business, invest in you, because you deserve to have the business that you want. You deserve to serve the people that you want. And what if you could show sellers a way that they could potentially make an extra $94,000 when it comes to selling their home? Well, with the Cash Plus and with the repair and renovation strategy, you can. So here's a property that a Cash Plus was done on in Las Vegas, Nevada. The seller made almost an extra $95,000 by using the Cash Plus strategy. I'm gonna go through the before and afters here, but as you'll see on the screen, there were about $30,000 of repairs made to this property. The pre-condition, it wasn't terrible, and you'll see in the before and afters here in just a moment, but had that home hit the market without the repairs and updates, it wouldn't have performed very well. When the repairs and the updates were made, however, it did awesome and netted that seller almost an extra $95,000. So here's the before of the home, and here's the after. Before of the kitchen and the after, just some sprucing up, some, it looks like cabinets were painted, that sort of thing. Here's the before, here's the after. And I'm such a visual person that I love to show how homes look after the Cash Plus strategy, because it just makes such a big difference. And I will say that what we're seeing with our Zoodealio members is a lot of the Zoodealio members will even virtually stage some of these photos. So that's always fun to see, because in the afters, they look great vacant, but then they'll also add in some virtual staging, maybe with like box brownie or something, and they look, even better. But, I just want to highlight the importance of investing a little into a home before it comes to market. It makes such a difference. And as you can see here, everything just looks bigger, brighter, more open. And then obviously when things like, flooring and carpet paint, that sort of stuff is done, it obviously shows very well too. So want to keep our minds open as to what is possible with the Cash Plus and the repair strategy. I think it's a game changer. I think that as you're working with sellers that their home needs some work, and that if it had a little bit of work done, it would sell for way more on the open market, this strategy just makes sense. And you may have seen actually that NAR has recently partnered with Curbio to kind of bring this product out to realtors. And what we can see anytime the NAR does their generational trends reports, where they really survey sellers and they survey buyers, what they always uncover when they're surveying sellers is that sellers are going to agents, and one of the things that they're looking for and looking for guidance from you on is what repairs to make, maybe what renovations to do in order to sell the home for top dollar. And so this strategy is such a beautiful way that you can do that. So I wanted to show that one. It just turned out so beautiful and made the seller a boatload more money. And it wasn't even that big of a job. I mean, if you look at it from the grand scheme of things, we're talking only $30,000 put into that to bring that return. So pretty incredible. I want to just leave you with that. Go make that video, send out that database message, send out a text. You could even take that into Facebook and you could direct message in Facebook. There's so much that you can do to get your message out to the marketplace, because here's what's going to happen. You start vibrating high on listings, on sellers, you start providing that value and that goodwill into your marketplace. People may not be ready now, and we could see somewhat of a tumultuous year, and maybe the election kind of causes things to be a little slow. Who knows? But what I do know is that if you start putting that message out now and you keep on that and you stay in front of people and you stay committed and you stay consistent, when they're ready, they're going to seek you out. You will be the trusted resource. And remember, the cash offer doesn't always work for everyone. And we say at Zoodealio, we are the first to say that it is about getting the listing. It is about meeting them where they're at, getting them to raise their hand and tell you that they're contemplating selling, so that then you can do your job of getting them their cash offers, explaining them, staying in front of them, following up with them, and then ultimately, when they're ready, if the cash offer doesn't work, then it is your job to pivot to taking that listing and bringing it to market. That is it for today. Thank you so much for being here with us. Have a wonderful week, and I will see you next week.